This is like a common occurrence where Antifa tries to get me beat up and posts a bunch of lies about me because the ends justify the means, I guess. Gainesville sure was a hoot. Now we're getting the hell out of here. Alright, so we're about halfway back to Orlando, but we're stopping off at Ms. Kathy's. Ms. Kathy's Cotillion Cafe? Kitchen?
Southern Cafe.
Southern Cafe? See, I don't even know what it is, but it sounds really bumpkin-y. So we're gonna go eat there. Before we get to Orlando and take off, and before I talk about being annoyed and targeted by activists all the time, we're gonna go to Miss Kathy's Cotillion Kitchen in a small town. What's the name of the town again?
I don't know.
I don't know what the name of the town is. Okay, well, we're gonna go eat. And as I was just saying, one of the greatest things you can do when you're traveling is to seek out smaller towns, small businesses. For one, support your local small business, support small town, small business. But, you know, we could stop at a Denny's or an IHOP, but what's the fun in that? You know, we want to get a real taste of America, so we're gonna go to Miss Kathy's Cotillion Kitchen, have some good eats. They have jambalaya, but that's what I'm gonna go for, the good old boy. Our version of a po' boy with lettuce, fried green tomatoes, and homemade Creole sauce.
Yeah, it's gonna be...
I told her we probably ate too much, but she insisted on getting dessert.
Oh yeah, I insisted, obviously.
Yeah. Salt with salted caramel cake.
Yes.
Let me just explain something. In Europe, when you order a dessert, it's this big. We were done because that was too big, and this is the bread pudding.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Never forget this advice. If you ever have to drive somewhere, don't eat at the chain restaurants. Maybe you've got a favorite. Maybe you really like Steak and Shake or Cracker Barrel. Find that good Ms. Kathy's in your neighborhood. You know, that small business. Maybe this is a huge chain and I just don't know.
No,
But
it's a family thing.
total family thing. Yeah. That was everything I could have hoped for and more. And now that I've ate so much, I can't drive. So here you go. You drive. Time to go home. Time to get the hell out of here, but we're going to different places. You're going home?
Yep.
Later. That was terrible.
Want to read that?
No. She missed. First one in, last one out. Today was a good combination of fun and boring. Good food. There's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about getting targeted. Nothing really happened, but getting targeted in Gainesville because this is like a common occurrence where Antifa tries to get me beat up and posts a bunch of lies about me because the ends justify the means, I guess. But That and something else I was just tweeting about, if you're following me on Twitter, there's this like weird thing where male feminist allies end up becoming sexual harassers and like rapists. So I was gonna talk a little bit about that. Patton Oswalt has this great tweet that he's like, the male feminist ally harasser is the millennial version of the Republican who's anti-gay who turns out to be gay or something. And now I am home, and I'm tired and dirty because traveling is exhausting. Seriously, sitting in a plane for several hours, it really is exhausting for whatever reason. I don't know, you guys probably traveled, maybe you haven't, but there's something about just sitting there doing nothing, you just get dirty. Anyway, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First thing I want to talk about, and I'm talking about these things very lightly, when I was in Gainesville, I was targeted by Antifa. For whatever reason, okay? So several tweets were posted, and these accounts that are sharing these tweets, they're not particularly large, but they were getting a decent amount of retweets. And they were saying basically that I was alt-right. They were accusing me of trying to dox people, saying that I was trying to provide information to the alt-right, like I have anything to do with these people. When the protest first arrived in Gainesville, I talked about this on the live stream, someone immediately started screaming, "It's Tim Pool, he's alt-right. He's with the alt-right," over and over again. And I just ignore it. I don't know who this person is or what they're doing or why they're doing it. But they're clearly trying to get me attacked because we saw this crowd attack people. Here's what's important to consider. When someone points a finger and screams Nazi, the crowd doesn't care if you're a Nazi. It's just mob mentality at that point. So if you look back at the coverage from, say, Hamburg, the G20, Luke Rudowski was filming, and someone points at him and calls him Nazi Schweinhund, Nazi pig, and random people just get up and start punching this dude, I think Max was his name. They don't know who this guy is. They're carrying cameras, they're maybe just journalists, but someone pointed the finger and random people show up and start hitting them, because that's what happens. So I'm not surprised this kind of thing happens all the time, but the reason I wanted to talk about it is because there were several people who had brought it up and several people who, support me and my work had brought it up and were talking about it. So I felt like, okay, I'll just briefly explain to anybody who may have seen those tweets exactly what had happened. The most egregious offense is not, in my opinion, is not that they were targeting me, but that the photo they posted was so damn unflattering. Ugh, I look terrible in that photograph. That's the biggest crime. No, I'm kidding. But I don't think it matters. I think, some of these people are just crazy, I guess. I had a lot of conversations with some of the protesters down there. I would say in Gainesville, there were significantly more people who knew who I was and liked me than didn't. So, this kind of stuff has been happening since I started doing this, and it will probably continue. So it is what it is. But the other thing that I just wanted to lightly talk about, because I'm sitting on the plane and they have Wi-Fi, and I'm seeing these stories about, Harvey Weinstein, the Newsweek guy who was fired, allegations of sexism. We heard about some guy who was a Vice contributor who was accused of sexual harassment. Now there's a Vox executive who is also accused of some kind of impropriety. This has been brought up to me by several of my progressive friends that they're male feminist allies who are often sexual assaulters and harassers for whatever reason. I don't know exactly why, but a lot of people have made the point, like I mentioned earlier, the Patton Oswalt thing, that the millennial, the male feminist ally who ends up becoming a rapist is the millennial version of the Republican, anti-gay Republican who turns out to be gay. But for whatever the reason, there is a huge slew of stories right now about media companies, progressive media companies to an extent, and guys there that are assaulting and harassing women. And so I wanted to say just a couple quick things why this might be. Well, some people have mentioned on Twitter that it could be because these are, I don't want to swear in the video because I tried to refrain from that, but the sneaky effer strategy that while the dominant men are fighting, the sneaky guy will come in and try and deceive their way into getting, laid. And so what ends up happening is these guys who are male feminists, they're kind of like the nice guy, you know? There's nice guys who think, oh, you know, I'm gonna dote around and take care of my women, milady, and they tip their fedora. And they're the ones who are likely male feminists. And sure enough, they're also the ones that feel they're entitled to a woman's body. So that might be the case, or it could just be that a lot of these guys are just not really feminists and are just playing that card to try and get an in. I don't know. But there's another idea to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and it's that the progressive outlets, the women there, are, I mean, in my opinion, they're more likely to speak up about issues of sexual harassment. And I would imagine in a lot of traditional, you know, non-progressive, non-partisan workplaces, a lot of women might just not say anything. I think, obviously, progressive outlets are going to employ and have a culture of women who are more likely to speak up at, you know, for any infraction, no matter how slight. And I feel personally that conservative women are more likely to ignore it or maybe not say anything. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I don't want to. The reason why I want to keep this short is it's just I was thinking about it. I want to address the issue, but I don't want to get too crazy into those stories. I just got back home and I wanted to riff on some ideas. Today was a travel day, so hey, you got to see Ms. Kathy's Kitchen, which was a whole lot of fun, and good food, travel, and now I'm back. So hopefully the video was somewhat informative or fun. And tomorrow I've got a lot of work to do, so stick around. Make sure to follow me on Twitter @TimCast. If you want to support my work, go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day. At 4 p.m., you can tell I'm tired, exhausted after this trip, but I'm going to be looking into the next big trip, and we'll see what happens. I may stick around New York for just a little while. I might be heading to DC in a few days, but I'm going to try and find stories that are outside the cycle, like I've explained before. And so sometimes that's just going to be what I can get out of it. So Miss Kathy's Kitchen was the bulk of the story for today and my travel. But I'd much rather find stories that people aren't talking about than to just try and chase after, you know, the stories I just talked about, for instance. So anyway, stay tuned. Breaking news from around the world. New videos every day at 4 p.m. And I will see you all tomorrow.